Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Dracula Season 1 Episode 1 Thoughts video. Just finished watching the first episode of 3 in the new Dracula series on Netflix based off the Bram Stoker books, and I'm just going to be sharing my general spoiler thoughts on the first episode. So if you haven't watched it yet, my general thoughts are go check it out. It's a good series. It's a great adaptation. That being said, I'm going to dive into some spoilers on it because this is an adaptation of or a kind of an inspired telling based off the Bram Stoker. It's not an exact telling, but it is based off of that Dracula with some same elements and some things changed up in it. And I wasn't really sure what to expect going into this. I'd kind of missed actually the couple trailers that were released for it just because so much stuff happening over these holidays. I've watched so many Netflix shows to keep up with, and then this one kind of snuck under the radar. But I was excited to check it out because I'm always down for a new Dracula thing. It's by Stephen Moffat, who did Doctor Who, and I believe he also does Sherlock as well. I meant to look that up before this, but yeah, so I was pretty excited going into this, getting a newer take on it, but also kind of still being based off of the Bram Stoker story, which I read when I was younger, and it's just always been one of my favorite kind of stories, and it makes sense why that's the titular vampire book. I'm not sure if it was, probably is, maybe it was the first vampire book ever, but to me, I get why it lasts so long, why it's still, you can still make a new Dracula series like this and it can still be popular. But that being said, overall the thoughts, this first episode gives us an introduction to it. The name of the episode is The Rules of the Beast, which is obviously a very fitting name for this episode. We spend this whole episode following a character named Jonathan Harker, who I believe is from the book, if I remember the names correctly, who goes to Dracula and is Dracula's castle in what seems to be Transylvania, but I think they called it Turkey in this. So that was fun, and then he meets Count Dracula when Dracula is kind of old and withered, and you're like, oh, what's gonna happen here? And then as their stay goes on, you see he's draining this guy and taking him, and Dracula slowly becomes younger as the Harker guy becomes older, and so that was a fun little thing. And they seem to be having kind of a little bit of a fun change up with it too, where he's a little bit more. It's not as kind of straightforward. He's just sucking people's blood. They seem to be a little bit more to it than just that. At least from my perspective on it, it could just be that he likes to get a little fancy with his meals per se. But that being said, I kind of really enjoy the way we introduced to this character of Dracula, but not given like a whole lot of exposition in a sense. We're not just straight up told who this is and who and what vampires are. We spend this whole episode kind of being told this story or being retold this story from Mr. or Jonathan Harker to a nun who we find out, again, spoilers for this episode, we find out near the end of this episode is a Van Helsing, which I knew was going to happen. I knew someone was going to be a Van Helsing, and the fact that she was kind of at the forefront of this nun who herself says that she has this fascination with the occult and witchcraft and has experience with that. So I really enjoy this kind of take on it, where we've got this female Van Helsing, which again I don't think is from the originals. I'm pretty sure that's updated. I'm pretty sure it was an old guy. Van Helsing was an old dude in the originals, but I do like this kind of take on it, having this nun who's sassy and a smart ass and just always just like sassing people and just straight up about her beliefs about God. Like this one line she even says, it's like she's like an unhappy wife or something along those lines, who's stuck in an unhappy marriage because she needs a roof over her head. And I was like, oh, that's a cold way to describe a nun's relationship to God. But so I just kind of like this character's take and following her as she's kind of getting to the truth of Harker's story in his time with Dracula, and ending up learning that he was actually turned into a zombie or an undead creature by Dracula, and now it's going to be a bride, and Dracula now wants him to be his bride. And I was like, oh snap, okay, I like this. Dracula's getting a dude bride, why not, right? We already met one of his brides in this episode who was just just a kind of fascinating little character to meet, and despite her just being a baby eater. And we see we see a couple other cages for his other brides, who I'm sure we'll be meeting in the next couple episodes. But yeah, so this episode was really fun. The way it ends off with Dracula just taking out a convent of nuns is just it's kind of exactly what I wanted actually from a Dracula story, was kind of seeing him be Dracula. And I like that they're playing with the lore a little bit. Some of the stuff's true. Yes, he's scared of crosses, but it's not for the reason that people think. Like the nun in this, or the Van Helsing nun is what I'm going to call her. Oh, the Van Helsing nun, she, thinks, originally thought that he's kind of like the devil, and that's why he's scared of the cross and its connection to God. And he's like, no, that's not it. I don't like crosses, but you're not going to guess why. And I'm like, but I want to know why, Dracula. Tell me why, Dracula. I want to know. So I like that they kind of are playing around with the lore of vampires and kind of giving us little explanations, but not giving it all at once. I also like that there seems to be some confusion. She's with the retelling of Harker's story. She thought that it was the cross that had stopped Van Helsing, and then it was like, well, no, the sun's bouncing off it. You made the connection that he was facing the sun, but not that the sun could have reflected off the cross, and that was what was burning Dracula's face in that scene. So that one I was like, but at the same time, it's because I saw that as opposed to her, as opposed to the nun who was just getting it as a retelling. But yeah, overall, this first part, which was an hour and a half, I like that this series is going with a different take. That's because it is a BBC production as well, or done in association with the BBC, and they tend to do this with certain series. I'm guessing this is going to be a limited series as well, that we're just getting these 3 episodes, and that'll be it. But I'll also find out as I watch the next couple episodes. But yeah, that's all my thoughts on the first episode. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can check out my next episodes, which I'll also link at the end of this video and in the cards and in the description below. But yeah, that's all my thoughts. Be sure to let me know in the comments below if you're going to be checking out Dracula on Netflix, and if you have, what you thought of the first episode or of the series overall. I'll try to avoid any spoilers for me and anybody else who checks out the video. But yes, that's all my thoughts. Thanks again for joining me today. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and have a good one.